Welcome to Vision Pros, the show all about spatial computing, visionOS, and getting work done on the Apple Vision Pro. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
I found that if you have a shortcut automation that runs when you connect to a specific Wi-Fi network, that basically is the same thing as like run a shortcut on boot. So as soon as I put it on after boots up, unlock with the iScan, and then that shortcut basically just runs right away. And the shortcut will ask me, are you here for work? Are you here for personal? Or do you just want to like do your own thing and make me go away? And so if I hit, all right, I'm here for work, what it does is it pulls up Slack, it pulls up Zoom, it pulls up one of those, like utility apps that has like the time and a few other controls.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Vision Pros. Joining me today is Santiago Hervella. He's a software engineer living in New York City. And in this episode, we dive into how he's using it to get his job done, whether it's joining Zooms via the Vision Pro or just using it as a nice big Mac monitor. And we dive into the visionOS 2.2 update, the other headsets he's used, and a bunch of other topics I hope you'll enjoy, including pretty extensive comfort modification discussions and some thoughts on the new products from Belkin that he has already. He has both the head strap and the travel case. So lots of cool topics in this interview coming up. As a reminder, you can support this podcast over at visionpros.fm/Patreon or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. My great thanks to everyone that supports the show. By supporting this show, you'll get early access to both Vision Pros and my other podcast, iPad Pros. And if you have not yet reviewed this podcast yet in Apple Podcasts, that too would be greatly appreciated. Head on over to the Apple Podcast app and leave a quick review. Every review goes a long way in helping others discover the show. With that, here's my discussion with Santiago. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Santiago.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. Really exciting.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm excited to dive into a lot of things, especially 2.2, which just came out, and a lot of thoughts there. But before we dive into all that, just a little bit on you. What's your background and your interest with visionOS and all that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm primarily a software engineer by day, by night, a musician playing some bands. And I think the interest really started probably close to 10 years ago now. I think when I first tried any sort of VR device, which was the Galaxy Gear VR. It was the one where you had to like snap your Android phone into the little device and you'd strap it onto your head.
Right.
And even just that, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's like Nintendo's Labo version of VR that they have for Mario Kart. It's like the worst possible version of VR, but even with that, you get a taste of how cool this is.
Totally. And then from there, it just kind of, I tried a few other ones at the time, and I was like, I just can't wait to be able to do any sort of work in this. That I found that really exciting. So I thought, all right, I'll pick this back up when that seems like any sort of possibility. So fast forward to like Quest 2, and that was like, okay, we should probably give this a shot. And that was probably like around the pandemic time, and there was a company called Immersed that made the software that could do like screen sharing with your computer. And I tried that, and I thought that was pretty good. The resolution's not quite there, but the Immersed software was pretty good, and it was kind of like a proof of concept that this whole like monitors floating in a VR space could even work. So that was exciting. And then the year after that was Quest Pro. And Quest Pro was like kind of the first mixed reality sort of thing, and that was impressive. But unfortunately, the resolution was basically the same as Quest 2 with like, slightly better lenses. And so I thought, okay, well, we'll just keep waiting. And kind of the rumors for Apple in the background was swirling, and I was like, oh man, like I can't wait for that. There were like a few other ones in between that I tried, like some HTC ones, the Vive and things like that. I never got to try. I think you've mentioned you've got the PSVR, right?
Yeah, I have both generations and love both of them. Like the original for comfort is unbelievable, and just all of that, and that price point they hit was so good. And PSVR 2, sure. It's a remarkable gaming headset with like haptics and natural headset that's vibrate as you're, doing different things in games. And yeah, love what PlayStation's done in the VR space, and hope they continue that, even if it's not that popular in it right now.
For sure. And I'd always wanted to try it, but I think one thing I was worried about is that I'm so prone to motion sickness. Like I can barely be a passenger in a car if I'm not driving. It's like horrible for me. I feel like I'm going to throw up almost right away. And so any single time I tried to do anything in VR that wasn't like the most stationary activity, I was just horribly nauseous. I remember trying like a Mario Kart clone on like Quest Pro, and after like one lap, I had to take it off and lay down for like 45 minutes. And I was like, oh my God. Wow. It's a shame to love this technology so much and be so hindered.
Yeah, you definitely develop sea legs the more you do it, for sure. The other thing I used as a crutch in the early days was I have this little bracelet thing that sends electrical signals through your body, through your wrist. It basically shocks you a little bit, but that grounds you into like, it's an anti-motion sickness kind of thing. And I have to use it less and less as I develop better and better sea legs over time. And one of the coolest experiences in PSVR 2, for those that have it, is Gran Turismo 7 with the racing rig. That is wild. Feels like you're driving all these expensive cars. It's lovely.
Yeah, wow. I've never heard of this wrist zapper thing. I should totally try that, because anything that would help my motion sickness, I will do it.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to it. What's the name of it? I'm trying to remember. But yeah, I'll have to look that up later and try to remember to include in the show notes, because in my people in my family have much greater motion sickness than I do, and worked at amusement parks and stuff as well. So very cool. Yeah,
totally. And so, yeah, I think after Quest Pro, the rumors were really heating up for the Vision Pro, and I was like, at first I was, my biggest worry, honestly, when they announced it, was like, if they didn't include Mac Virtual Display, I would have been so bummed. And so I was kind of like holding my breath during WWDC, being like, come on. And sure enough, they did. And I was like, okay, this is going to be just incredible. And so just from the moment they announced it, I was like, I will be there day one. It's going to happen. And that now we're here.
Yeah. And it's the integration of the Mac is such an amazing thing, because it really opens up using this for work for a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't have. Like, I can do a lot of work in it just because I have a lot of iPad workflows, and also I figured out how to sideload iPad apps that the developers don't want on the platform. But otherwise, the Mac adds so much versatility to what you can do here, because as we all know, there's no I/O on the Vision Pro, which limits what you can actually do. Like recording a podcast, there's no way to hook up a mic to this thing. Like you need a Mac, because that actually has ports and things you can do with. Yeah,
definitely. Have you ever heard of? There's another like small company trying to do this prototype looking headset called SimulaVR.
No,
and it's kind of neat, because it tries to solve that problem you just described, where what they're trying to do is just have like a little mini Linux computer in a box with lenses on the side, basically. And so you strap the whole thing to your face, and it's got like ports and everything like that. And so you use it just as like just the computer. It doesn't really do much else. And the idea is that if you're not using it for VR purposes, you can take it off your face and just put it on the table and plug a monitor in and use it like a regular computer.
That's really cool. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people going around with the Mac Mini now, because it's small enough that you can fit it inside like that little pouch you get with the Vision Pro case.
Yes,
Throw it in there.
I saw that. Totally.
I have the headless MacBook Air, so that's kind of my probably preferred form factor for all this, because like I got a keyboard and trackpad along with that. But that Mac Mini thing seems very cool for those that don't want to rip apart a MacBook.
Definitely. I think it was like 2 months ago, I got an M1 Mac Mini just to have as like a media server at home. And then they announced this one, and I was like, I don't need it. I don't need it. And then I saw people posting about like, oh yeah, it fits in that little nook on the Apple Vision Pro case. And I'm excited to see how far people take it, basically. Like if they are going to carry around some like power supply just to power the Mac without a wall outlet or something like that.
It's such a bummer that Mac can't run off of USB-C power delivery in some way. Like it'd be so cool if you could use the AC outlet, or you could use a USB-C port, but that's not the case. Because that would be just amazing, right?
Yep, incredible.
But yeah, so I'm curious, to see what kind of hacks people do to power that thing up. And I wonder if there will be like a mod kit to like add USB-C power delivery in some way. I know Sigmund has the Apple TV running off of some power source that's not officially sanctioned by Apple. So I'm curious what the modders will do with that thing.
Wow.
So, so as far as different headsets, you've tried a bunch in the past, and you've played around with the XReal glasses and stuff as well.
I have, yes, because I think those were also kind of like the sweet spot where it was like, if these are good, this would be awesome. Where it's just this like tiny little form factor, and the only thing they need to do is plug into your computer. They don't even have a battery, and so they're just powered via USB-C, and that would be great. So I've tried a few of those. I've tried the XReal. I've tried one from a company called Viture that put one out probably like a few months ago, and they've definitely gotten better, but they're still only 1080p as far as the resolution goes, and then the software is pretty glitchy in my experience on all of them, really. And so if you turn your head a little bit, the monitors generally start kind of like jittering, and so it doesn't do a lot of wonders for the motion sickness. But I could see how it's something that people could enjoy, especially for gaming, if there's not a lot of latency. I know people use that sort of stuff for like plugging into your Steam Deck or something like that.
Right, totally. Yeah, it's weird with gaming. Like, I've tried some remote play apps and stuff. The Sony one isn't there for PS5, but there's like third-party ones. It's like, that's just not great. It's, maybe if there was a first-party one, it'd work better. But for now, I'm just PlayStation Portal and using a handheld versus trying to do it in the headset, which is a shame because it's, movies are such a great experience there. I'd love if, the gaming would be great there too. I need to figure out PS Remote Play on the Mac side of things. It hasn't worked since I updated to the beta, because that could be a cool thing. Ultrawide mode on the Mac. Audio is now routing to the Vision Pro with this latest beta, so that's also much better now. So I could see remote playing via a Mac being better, because you have better networking there too with faster Wi-Fi chips and all that.
Yeah, I was surprised at how good the audio latency is when it does that. I was worried that if I'm like wearing AirPods and the AirPods are connected to the Vision Pro, but the audio is coming from the Mac, like how all the hops that it has to do to get there. And so I tried immediately. I was like, well, let me play back some video, and it was just perfect. And I was like, wow, impressive.
Yeah. Are you using USB-C AirPods or Lightning ones?
USB-C. So I'll admit that when they announced the USB-C ones before the Vision Pro came out, I was like, slightly better latency with Vision Pro, I need them immediately. And I gave my Lightning ones to my sister-in-law, and I was like, here you go. Yeah,
it's the only way to do lossless Apple Music is through Apple Vision Pro and AirPods, or the built-in speaker pods. But I have a dedicated pair of USB-C AirPod Pros that live with my Apple Vision Pro, and then I have my old Lightning pair that I use for my work that I beat up more. And one of them has a broken mic, which is a lot of fun to deal with when I forget. Yeah.
Have you tried using the Lightning ones with the Vision Pro? Like, kind of A/B test the latency between them?
Yeah, it's fairly good. Like, it's definitely not as good, but it's not terrible at the same time. Yeah, I should do more testing, especially with the Mac version of how that all works. Let's dive into 2.2. So something that surprised me. So I knew that the audio would go into the Apple Vision Pro. The way it does it is very confusing me. Like, if you try to control volume on the Mac, it just does nothing. It doesn't affect the output, because it's just like all routed to the Vision Pro, and you're just controlling it the normal way you do in Vision Pro land. I'm not sure if that's what I would expect or not. Like, maybe if you hit the volume button, it adjusts how loud it's sending it to the Vision Pro, but that's not the case. Just a level line to it,
Yeah, I was pretty surprised about that for sure. I guess in hindsight, that's kind of how they treat all external audio. Like, if you ever plug your MacBook into like an HDMI TV or something like that, it does the same thing if you're routing the audio through the TV. So I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but I was kind of hoping it would be more granular somehow, because if you're working with the MacBook and you got the Vision Pro on, I found myself like, okay, I have all my settings dialed in volume wise on the Vision Pro. Here's how I like it for when I'm like watching movies or listening to music, or, if I get a text, it doesn't just like explode in my ears.
Yeah.
But then now that I connect the Mac, it's like, oh, okay, well now I got to kind of mess with all these settings that I've had dialed in just for when the Mac goes, unless I then go to the Mac and like lower them inside the apps, for example. But then now I have to bring them back up when I'm done using the Vision Pro. And so I feel like it's a lot more maintenance overall.
So in your day job, you're a software developer,
yep.
right? So, and you're using the Vision Pro as a monitor is a big part of your work?
Yeah, at this point, it's basically essential. I had a monitor for my kind of like home setup, but I have not used it a single time since I got the Vision Pro. It's listed on Facebook Marketplace, and trying to get rid of that. My wife is extremely excited that that's leaving the apartment, and it's been amazing for a whole host of ways. I think Justin, which you had on the podcast, he kind of had a similar experience here where like the ergonomics are just unmatched for me, where before I always had trouble sitting up straight or hunched over, looking at the monitor while also making sure I had the keyboard at the right height. And then with Vision Pro, I don't have a nice leather chair like Justin has, but I do have like the nice comfy couch. And I find that if I put the Mac Virtual Display at the right height, my posture totally improves. And so far, it's just been a totally delightful experience to use it that way. And what's nice is that my work computer is also a MacBook. And so I just was able to get it on my Apple ID. And so it works no problem. And what's been fun is that I've been using the Mac Virtual Display in conjunction with visionOS apps for work specifically, because the rest of the work stuff, other than just like the MacBook itself, is all pretty heavily pinned down. And so that means that I can't do things like, or rather, the rest of the work stuff is pretty heavily pinned down. And so I'll have like the floating Slack iPad app on one side. I'll have the Zoom visionOS app on the other side, and kind of use them all in conjunction. And so it's great when someone sends me a Slack message. I don't need to have Slack open on the computer. I can just see it on one side. And a lot of the times people will send like impromptu Zoom link. And so I can click it in the Slack iPad app on visionOS, and it'll open Zoom on visionOS, and I'll join right away. And so that whole workflow is just awesome.
Very cool.
Something else that I do when I go to put on the Vision Pro, because most of the time that I use it, I would say probably like 70% of the time, it's primarily to use the Mac as a virtual display. And while this got way better in visionOS 2, where now they have that setting that it'll preserve the open apps between restarts, one thing that I would do is, while the Shortcuts app is still just the iPad app, it still has a bunch of useful stuff that you can do. And so one thing I set up is I found that if you have a shortcut automation that runs when you connect to a specific Wi-Fi network, that basically is the same thing as like run a shortcut on boot. So as soon as I put it on after boots up, unlock with the iScan, and then that shortcut basically just runs right away. And the shortcut will ask me, are you here for work? Are you here for personal? Or do you just want to like do your own thing and make me go away? And so if I hit, all right, I'm here for work, what it does is it pulls up Slack, it pulls up Zoom, it pulls up one of those, like utility apps that has like the time and a few other controls. And it'll also run the like little, actually, do you use the, with your headless MacBook Air, do you ever connect it to an iPad?
I will, for Sidecar, for sure.
Because I remember when Federico first put out the MacPad article, he had that kind of like quick connection to when he puts the iPad up, and it was this.
Yes, I have that in my dock of the iPad, and it works so well.
And so with that, I kind of like went in there and I was like, how does this work exactly? And because the Mac Virtual Display is basically just Sidecar under the hood, what I was able to do is I took that shortcut that he made for that, and I kind of just modified it a little bit to auto connect to the target MacBook that I'm going to be using for that session. And so all I do is I hit, run work. So I get Slack, I get Zoom, I get the little bar up top. And then also it just connects to the MacBook that that I should have open when I'm ready for that. Unfortunately, there's like,
Are you able to share that shortcut, or is it?
I can definitely share the shortcut. I'll just comment out any sensitive data, but I can definitely share it. And the only hiccup is that right now with Vision Pro, when you connect, so you have to run it over SSH, and when you do that over Vision Pro, you need to accept that it's doing that. And so it says, are you sure you want to be able to do this? And you just have to hit a little yes. So it pains me that I can't say, don't even ask me, but it's otherwise it feels really, really great. So similar.
Good.
So there's that for work, and then personal has a similar one with like my personal MacBook. And I don't know, do you use these days any one of those like utility apps? I remember when it first launched, there were like 30 clock apps and these little like status bar apps.
I have probably like 20 of them installed, but I don't have them open that often.
Okay.
If I'm honest.
Yeah. I used to use just the lava lamp clock. I thought that one was a fun one.
Yeah, that's a very fun one. Yeah.
But then I feel like I needed just a few more pieces of detail. And there are a lot of great ones. And I love that so many developers jumped on it, because I feel like as a user, I have so many different options for what fits me. And in my case, I don't have my calendars connected to my iCloud account or anything like that. So there were a bunch that brought in your calendar. And so I just needed one that was like a little bit more bare bones. And so there's one that I totally love called Instant Bar. And so I'll have the time, I'll have like music controls, I'll have the battery, and maybe weather or something like that. And so I'll always have that floating above the Mac Virtual Display. And that just makes it super comfortable.
Very nice. Yeah. As you were walking me through the shortcut based on Wi-Fi, oh man, I just had a huge smile on my face. It's like, this is just so damn brilliant. So brilliant. Like asking you, are you working? Or are you here for fun? Like, oh my gosh, because this solves like such a huge pain point of just getting your workspace set up. And I guess the only thing we need in shortcuts is like some kind of way of telling the system I want the windows arranged in this way. Because right now, I believe when you're running the shortcut, you're probably moving your head, looking where you want each of the windows to launch, and you know what's about to launch, and you're doing that kind of magic trick, right?
Yes, it's a bit of a race to be like, okay, move and center. All right, it worked.
Right, yeah.
But yeah.
But I love this idea, though. It's so smart of like, oh, let me just, tell it what I'm... Because you could have it where it just doesn't even ask you, which seems worse. I love that you're asking, and you have these different presets of different apps that you open up.
Yes, absolutely. It made me think of... I think a few episodes ago you had David Sparks on, and he was talking about like how he thinks about contextual computing, and I sort of was reminded of that with, okay, is it for work or is it for play? And when it's for play as well, I think so much of the time that I'm doing play in Vision Pro, it's like trying out new apps, but so much of the time I'll find an app while I'm like reading RSS on my phone, or I'm like browsing something on my Mac, and it's like, okay, well, how do I make sure that I remember to do that when I put on Vision Pro? And so the play shortcut, if it's for just using my Mac, it's like, okay, it just runs that sort of stuff. But otherwise, I make sure to save all of these things into, I use OmniFocus as my task manager. And so it'll save them to a specific OmniFocus project. And so when it boots up and it asks me, are you here for play? If I hit yes, it'll open up OmniFocus to a little perspective that just shows me that project of like, hey, these are some things you wanted to check out in Vision Pro since the last time you were here. So that'll pop up, and I can just start clicking into apps or trying little settings that I found out. So that's also a fun workflow.
That's really cool. And I was just thinking, I think battery percentage is a trigger. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
So if it like reaches 15%, you can have it automatically open up like one of your battery apps that just shows you your current battery thing as a reminder. Hey,
oh, that's a great idea.
Stupid plug-in right now.
That's a great idea. Yeah, because I think you've talked about how fun it is if you wear it all the way until it dies.
Yeah, it's a blast. So you have to wait 5 minutes to charge it back up to a decent state.
Yep. And
because I'll be like, oh, shows me 20%, then like 10. It's like I'm in the middle of a movie and I totally forget that it showed me that.
Yep.
It's like, oh.
I think I'm so used to the Apple Silicon MacBooks having such incredible battery life that when it gets to 10%, I'm like, I'm still good. I'll finish up my thought, what I was doing. But with Vision Pro, it's like, oh, no, I need to plug in right now. Otherwise, once that countdown starts, plugging in does nothing.
Yeah, definitely. My Vision Pro, I think I mentioned this other episodes, but my cable looks like it's been through a war. It's like all frayed to crap up. And,
Yeah, you're on your second one, right?
I'm on my second one, and I don't want to call them up this soon. Yeah.
How's the second one holding up?
I can. Oh, it's same issue as the first one, but instead of having it be bent, I relieved the bend by cutting the fabric away.
Wow.
So the middle part is just the rubbery stuff, and it's now just fraying across the top and bottom, giving me more and more rubber. So that's, yeah, I could go back to the bent one that's not frayed, but it's, I don't know what I'm doing with these cords to make them not happy.
Yeah, after I first heard you mention that, ever since then I feel like I was already sort of like babying it in general, but after that I was like, okay, I got to keep it, make sure there's no kinks every single time I put it away. It's got to be nice and tucked.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's like, is it how I was storing it, or does it not like that it's like by my side in a chair when I'm using it for these long sessions? I don't know.
Do you store it in a case or just out?
Yeah, it's in the Apple Vision Pro case, the official one.
Yes.
And the battery's just connected at all times to it through that.
Yeah. I used to store it that way because I love the case. I think it's a fun look, but nowadays the comfort mod that I use, it doesn't fit in the case anymore, and so I just have to leave it out on the table.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could never do that with little infant and the cat.
Oh, true.
So. But yeah, before we dive into comfort mods, 2.2. So
yeah.
Before we get to ultra wide and wide, has the clarity for me has always been good. It's gotten better though, right? That's the thing.
Specifically, the Mac
as
Virtual
far as
Display.
Yeah.
So I read people talking about this, and I was so ready to like observe. So right before I was updating, I was like pixel peeping as hard as I could, and I was like, okay, remember what this feels like. And then I updated, and I looked again, and I guess I always thought it was so good already. I don't know. I think what's maybe better is the performance in general. I don't know if I can say for sure that the clarity is better, but the performance in general for sure works. And specifically, the little message that always pops up about like the input being wonky or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I haven't ran into that at all since 2.2, yes. Where it's like, oh, you can't connect, hold on a minute.
Yes.
And you can't use universal control during that period of time.
Exactly, yeah. And I was so bummed because on visionOS 2, they moved that little message onto the Mac itself. And so if you are using the Mac Virtual Display and you have like a window that's full height, that message will cover part of that window. And so I have to shrink the window a little bit. And I'm like, this is awful, because before it used to float. And so now I'm just like, oh man, is this message ever going to go away? But since 2.2, I have not noticed it a single time. And so I'm trying not to jinx it, but I'm crossing my fingers because that would be a big deal.
Yeah, that'd be huge. And yeah, I've not noticed that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, because that's such a that was such a huge pain in the butt, because a lot of times I just connect to the Mac purely for universal control and have the Mac window just hidden behind me somewhere, like, and then randomly it wouldn't work.
Yeah, so, I ran into that issue so frequently that I at some points just gave up on universal control, and when I wanted to use other apps, I would just do the look and pinch. And so now, the last 2 days that I've been, or whenever it was that I installed it, I've just been using universal control all the time, and it's just wonderful.
That's really cool. So tell me about wide and ultra wide. How have you been finding this as a new option for you?
I think this is one of those moments that kind of makes me giddy all over again, where I remember when I first saw Mac Virtual Display, I was like, this is just stunning. It's amazing how big you could make it, the resolution, how clear it was. And I kind of had that feeling again, even just starting from like when you first switch it into ultrawide, the animation itself, just when the screen stretches and it's so smooth, and you're just like, wow, they really put in a lot of effort and were very meticulous on how they approach this. And I thought, again, with like performance issues and stuff like that, if you do all the way to the ultrawide, how would it handle it. I know they were trying to use more foveated rendering from the Mac, and so I was kind of waiting to see how that worked out, and I'm just absolutely blown away. I haven't had a single issue on the beta, and it's just like absolutely super clear, high resolution. I couldn't be happier. I've always wanted an ultra-wide monitor. I never had space in my small New York apartment or for something like that, and so now doing this, I'm just like, this is just next level and really, really changes the game, because I think on other times that I've tried devices that let you have your screen in VR in any way, so whether it be the Quest or the XReals or anything like that, the most that they can do usually is offer you multiple virtual monitors, and so you kind of have to space them out, and so now you have to manage windows across multiple monitors, and it's not as seamless. And so this is the first time that I saw something and I was like, oh, this is just incredible. What do you think?
It's nice. It's really good. I struggle sometimes. Like, do I want wide or ultra wide? Ultra wide, it's so much, and you can resize these windows just like you could before. So you can make your ultra wide smaller or bigger, and you can make it so you literally have to turn your head all the way around to see stuff, which goes right into the visionOS kind of paradigm of, let me have this window over here. I know it's there, but I'm not looking at it all the time. And depending on what I'm doing, it's really nice to have all that real estate.
Yes, I think.
And it's so nice not to need to, because before you could like crank down your resolution or up the resolution in your Vision Pro with like better display tool or something like that. And now you don't need to do that. You can have the more legible size, but just more space to work in, which is so good.
Yeah, for sure. If you go all the way to the most ultra wide setting, and you go into the Mac display settings and you pick that densest resolution, I think it's the equivalent of two 5K displays side by side. And the text is obviously super tiny, but if you make the screen as big as you want, I think it's usable. I remember when they first announced the ultra wide, they showed the what was it? They showed the kind of hero image of the woman sitting at the table with the ultra wide in front of her, and the ultra wide just looked absolutely massive. And I was like, is this just a bad render? Is it actually going to be, can you actually make it this big? And so that was one of the first things I tried, and I was like, let's see how big it can go. And it's, wow, okay, like, yeah, I get it. That was not playing around. That's how it actually looks.
And it's not curved, right? It's just a very wide rectangle. Or is it curved at all?
I think it's definitely curved. Not only do I think the ultrawide is curved, I think when I updated, I think the smallest one, the one that we had, the regular one, also now has just the tiniest little curve to it. Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to remember back. It's like, is it actually curved? Because it's the same window, like it's a regular window that you resize, but yeah, it does have a curve to it. Now that I'm thinking about it,
which I love. I think it's just adds to that kind of surround feel.
Is that, you think, a special thing that only Apple can do, or are other developers able to make their windows curved in this way?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I don't know the ins and outs of it super clearly. I know that when you make one of those volumes, like for example in the television app by Sandwich, that they have certain models that probably look that way, but I don't know that anyone else has access to, like, okay, let me make the very edges of my volume look that way, and I can make them bigger and smaller by grabbing the curved edge or something like that.
Right. So as you're using wide and ultra wide, do you most time use wide or ultra wide? What's your preferred mode?
I think I've settled on wide being my favorite, because with ultra wide, it's awesome. And I tried, some of those, the super stretched videos and stuff like that, and put those into full screen, and that's super fun. But I think I'd rather have visionOS apps taking up that part of my field of view to use it all in conjunction, rather than only have the Mac and then having to like really move my body to see anything else that I have open. So I think the wide is great because it gives me a little bit more space than the regular one horizontally. And that's great because when I had just the one we had before, if I wanted more resolution or if I wanted to make it a little denser, that means I had to make the window way bigger, which would make it bigger in all in all directions. And so anything that I had above it, for example, like my little instant bar status stuff or anything like that, I had to always like adjust it. And so they were always like a little bit farther out of my view. Whereas with the wide, the vertical height doesn't take up as much space, and I get more of the horizontal for Windows on the Mac. So that one to me is the most comfortable.
Yeah, and the thing about it is it's a narrow window overall, the wide, ultra wide. So it feels really, there was a worry like, oh, if I do this, will that mean I really can't use visionOS apps at the same time? But what I found is above and below it is perfect for those apps, right? In that, if I'm using ultra wide, I still have the above and below real estate because it's such a narrow window overall, depending on how you size it.
Right. Now, one thing I haven't tried, though, is doing something like video editing or audio editing on the super ultra wide, because I think that's something people typically use those for, where you have the super stretched timeline and you can see all your tools and stuff like that. So that's something I should do.
And so overall, you're still doing the same approach of Zoom for visionOS versus trying to do more in the Mac.
Yes. Zoom, like the video conferencing.
Right. Yep.
Yes. I have, I think I forget their name. I'm sorry. You interviewed the developer of Persona webcam, and I use that on the Mac, and that is just what an incredible idea. And I think that's just like, Apple's got to add that at some point, and it works super well. Everything that guy makes is just excellent. We use Bezel at work. After I saw the updates he's been putting into it, everyone for demos at work when we work on the mobile apps is just perfect. So Persona webcam, I knew was going to have like, okay, there's a lot of quality and thought going into this app, and it works so great to have my Persona kind of accessible on the MacBook. And so for some Zoom calls, I will do it that way, because otherwise, if I want to share my screen, that's usually when I do it, because otherwise I have the Zoom visionOS window, and then I have to manage that, but also manage my MacBook at the same time. And so I have to join the meeting twice to be able to share my screen from the MacBook. So that's when I use Persona webcam, and that's been great.
And joining work calls from the visionOS, or personas. What's that reaction been like at your workplace so far?
It's been super fun. It's been absolutely hilarious seeing the range of reactions to it. I think the very first weekend of having it, setting up that initial persona, I remember before they put out, I think it was like 1.1, where there was a big persona update. That first persona, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to use this at work. This seems a little scary. And then 1.1 came out, and I did a rescan, and I was like, wow, this is way better. And I think the reason I thought, okay, I think I can use this is because even though the rendering of the persona will only ever get better, I think one thing they really nailed, in my opinion at least, is the facial tracking. And so the eye blinks, I can scrunch my face in any way I want. I can wink, I can nod, all these things that I would ever use to communicate anything just visually were there. And so I thought, okay, let's give this a shot. And if people are like, absolutely not, no, I'll stop. But otherwise, I'm going to keep going. And so those first few ones were super funny, because people were like, whoa, what's going on? What is this? All that stuff. But the thing is that only lasted maybe like a few days to a week. And after that, people just kind of got used to it, and no one would make any comments. And I'd sort of even just forget about it. It would just be like the standard way that I would join meetings until we'd get someone new on the team, and then I wouldn't be thinking about it. They'd join, and someone would be like, oh my God, what's going on? Although the most recent person that joined our team, when they joined, I was already sharing my screen, and so I must have had a smaller thumbnail on their side, and they didn't say anything. They didn't notice at all. And when we were hanging up, I stopped sharing my screen, and they were like, that's a funny background you have going on. And I was like, background? What do you mean? And they were like, well, your shoulders are just a little you kind of look like an angel. Is this like a Zoom filter? And I had to kind of explain to them, it's like, no, this is a whole thing. They're like, oh wow. They were just totally shocked. They were like, I would have totally believed it. And I was like, that's a pretty high quality bar to meet. So I think it's only going to get better, and it's a ton of fun to join and do that with it. There are definitely still people in the camp of, there's especially one guy when I joined who always calls it nightmare fuel. And that makes me laugh. And then there are other people that are like, this is just super cool. And they are interested. And in fact, after they had a few meetings with the persona, they were like, how can I try this? Like, can I make one for myself without owning one? And I was like, unfortunately not. But we did a little class field trip from work because we work near an Apple store here in New York. And we took like 10 people to all try out Vision Pro after they saw what was going on in the office with it. And there were a lot of like whoas. And then a few people that were like, I don't know, that's scary. I feel like I would never leave.
And what kind of development do you actually do? What kind of software?
So what we do is we just make it's a credit card product just for small businesses that have fleets of drivers to get gas and have like security controls around that. So the owners will give out the credit cards to their drivers, and they'll say like, oh, we don't want them to steal gas, and so we'll say you can only fill up with these specific conditions. And so I mostly work on the backends for that, for like integrating with other services. So I'm usually doing backend work on that, but we have like, web apps and stuff, and there's a mobile app now that we're putting out.
Very cool. And I was going to mention earlier too, I'd imagine the Zoom calls where there's like 20 people in at the big companies where let's all join the Zoom. Mm-hmm. No one would be able to tell in the little small window things, right?
No, absolutely not. And I do that all the time. And so there are plenty of people at the office that I only ever join a call with when it's, like an all hands or something like that. And our company's not that big. It's like maybe 60, 70 people now. And so, yeah, on those all hands meetings, it's just, there I am in the corner.
Yeah. And you do a combination of work from home and in office work?
Yes, exactly. And I usually work at least one day from home. And so when it's working from home, it's just Vision Pro all day, personas for every meeting, and it's great. I think when I first got it, I was using it at the office because I love the idea of being the one weird guy at the office in the corner at a desk with nothing on it. Like I would hide my MacBook somewhere else and I'd have a wireless keyboard or something, and I would just be sitting at an empty desk just typing away. And that was really fun. And I remember our CEO walking by, and there was an investor that was in the office with them. They're kind of walking down the hallway, and the investor looks over at me, and I think they, the classic thing where they probably think that you can't see them. And I kind of look over, and they kind of have this reaction of like, "Oh wow!" And I think it was probably, hopefully, a good look for the CEO, being like, "Wow, you guys are really on the bleeding edge here." But the problem became that in software development, so much of the time I need to work with my team and show them what's on my screen and being like, "Okay, well, let's talk about how we design this." And that kind of became the culprit for why I stopped bringing it to the office, because I'd have to take it off. It would, thankfully, it would load up really fast on the Mac, and I'd point it out, and then I'd have to go back in and reconnect and everything. So after a few weeks, I said, okay, this is just a work from home device.
Is there an easy way to have virtual display running and say, let me mirror that to my Mac monitor as well? There's no way to do that, is there?
I don't think so. No, like to have it on both. Yeah.
Which is so weird. Like as that not being an option. Like, let me just like AirPlay it to this thing.
Yeah.
Have the display still run.
Yeah. The best thing that I tried initially was just seeing when you share your view on Zoom, you can do that. Mm-hmm. But that was pretty useless for them being able to see anything on the actual Mac virtual display.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And then going back to 2.2 very briefly, I just want to say I'm using a MacBook Air M1 with 8 gigs of RAM. And I was wondering, how will this perform with the Mac now being the thing that is powering the foveated rendering and being more control? Because that was the big change between prior to this and now. The Mac does the work versus the Vision Pro doing the work. And I have to say, it's very performant. I think the thing that it is using more of is RAM. As I look in Activity Monitor, I think it's using probably a little bit over a gig of RAM, with ultra-wide mode enabled, and that's probably the big thing, that more RAM is better for this kind of stuff. But it still works great on the base, M1.
Yeah, I agree. I have that Mac Mini server, which is also just the base model, and I don't have a monitor for that anymore. So whenever I need to do something in that, I will just put on the Vision Pro and connect right to that. And same thing. I haven't noticed any hiccups or anything like that. But one thing I have noticed, I don't know if this is specific to the Ultrawide or maybe it's just a beta thing or something like that. But I actually found out from you when you first brought it up, where you can enable that developer setting to have the Mac Virtual Display when you're fully immersed.
Yes.
And that setting is just incredible. Like I truly hope they bring that to everyone, because even it's not that hard to enable, but the fact that it's so hidden and it's just so great. I absolutely love it. And after that, as soon as I heard you say it, I was like, I need to enable this immediately. And wow, it's been just a game changer. And so one thing I've noticed is if I'm in the immersive environment for a different app, not just Apple's, or not just, like the Apple Theater app or something like that, then doing something like screen recording on top of that, it only lasts maybe like 25 seconds before it just boots me out to the home screen. And so the other day I was using the Mac on the Avengers Tower in the Disney Plus environment. And so I was like, my dad's a big Iron Man fan. And so I thought, oh man, I'm going to totally take a screen recording of this, like using this ultra wide looking over New York and the Disney Plus app. And it probably couldn't handle it. I don't know if that was the ultra wide or something else, but that might be a limitation.
Yeah, but the Disney app is like, if you're just working Mac Virtual Display, it is just so fun to just like load up the Disney app and pull up the different environments there. And it's a nice kind of way to do this stuff while we wait for third-party environments to be system-wide.
Definitely. And I've been looking for apps that have any fully immersive thing where I can just load that up and keep working. And
you can work in SpongeBob's SquarePants environment.
Yeah, that one's funny. There's one called
in that environment in Paramount Plus, it's such a weird environment because it's interactive as well. I'm not sure if you've noticed that.
Yes, with the bubbles.
Yeah, and other things. I think you can. There's like houses and stuff you can interact with and all that.
Yep. There's an app called Moon Portal that will. The app is like, oh, you have these little portals, or you have like effects that you can put in the room, but they also have fully immersive environments that you can just go into. And they have ones where it's like, I think they might be user generated, but they have ones where it's like, okay, here's like a mid 80s arcade basement in a house or something. And then you can just go in there, and it's not quite as high resolution as like the Disney Plus ones or the SpongeBob or Apple, but because it's just in your periphery while you're working on the Mac, that's been really fun to just play around with. And they have quite a few in the list there. And so you can just bring your Mac in there and go to town.
Super cool.
The last thing I'll say about being able to use your Mac in the immersive environment is, it being a developer setting, it makes sense that it would be for developers that are working on these fully immersive experiences. And so the funny part is that I noticed the Mac Virtual Display, when you do that, it sort of interacts with the 3D objects that are in that fully immersive environment. And so one of the apps that I use to watch movies is Skybox, because Skybox lets me watch movies off of my M1 media server, the Mac Mini. And so I'll be in the theater environment in the Skybox app. And if I bring if I bring the Mac Virtual Display into that, and I kind of push it forward to the row of seats in front of me, it'll go through the seats, and then it'll be like half covered by the seat. And so I'll be like, oh, that's funny. It's like, it feels even more realistic. And so I'll have to like make sure it's up in front of the seats if I want to use it at the same time.
That's really cool. Yeah. Most time for movies and stuff, it'll be like on the ceiling, and I can glance up and look at what I'm needing to use there.
Yeah, that's a good one. I used your tip of just making it like a big zoomed in Mac app, like Messages or something like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, change the resolution of the Mac to like 800 by 600 so the font's nice and chunky, and yeah. So for comfort, anything else on 2.2? I think we covered it pretty in depth here, right? Anything else we're missing?
I think the only other thought on 2.2 is, while I love everything about it, I think one thing I would hope in the future is that before it was just this kind of like clean window, nothing adorning it. And now the button for changing the wide setting is just always visible. I was kind of hoping that it would be like the other adornments, like the window grabber or the close button, where it would only be visible if you kind of focus on the window. So we'll see if they update that in the future. But for now, it's just there all the time.
Right, yeah. For those that aren't familiar, haven't used this yet, there's in the top middle, there is a new option where you just tap it, and that is where you change it from normal, wide, or ultra wide.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we'll see if that changes over time or how they'll tweak that. Do you expect any other feature enhancements throughout visionOS 2's lifespan before we get to 3?
I don't really think so, because this is probably the last one that was teased at WWDC, right? I can't remember anything else.
I believe so, yeah. And then I know on Threads I saw one influencer said, I got to see something in visionOS that no one's seen yet before. It's like, I don't know if that's just clickbait or whatever.
Yeah, I doubt it. I think there are probably maybe little things here and there. Like I've seen some new accessibility settings and things like that, but nothing, no flagship feature probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So, comfort mods. I've tried a couple of these things. I know Apple is now selling an official one from Belkin as a top strap. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of tempted to try these things, but I've got my SoloTop. I already spent the money. Do I really want to be bummed out that I could have just waited and gotten this much cheaper option?
Yeah.
So walk me through what you've tried. Are you at all tempted by this Belkin thing? I know you probably have something that's similar to like a PlayStation VR thing. That's the big plastic thing that gaming headsets use.
Yeah. Oh man. Where to start, Tim? Comfort mods have been such a journey. From the very, very first day, I remember putting on Vision Pro and using it for maybe like 30 minutes just with the Solo Knit Band. And I was actually sad at the end of those 30 minutes because my first thought was like, oh no, this is so much more uncomfortable than I thought it would be. And I was worried at first that I would have to absolutely just straight up return the headset just because of how uncomfortable it was to use. And so I quickly tried the dual band one, and I was like, this is slightly better. I can use it probably more for like an hour before I have to take it off. But I was still worried. I was like, even with just like an hour at a time, I'll probably keep it. But I was so blown away that I was like, even if I just use it like laying down, I'll probably just have to keep it because it's just so fun and mind blowing.
I was so bummed too. It's like, oh my gosh, my face is hurting after like, oh gosh, what? Yeah, and so the comfort mods have really been saving us because, like, oh my gosh, it's such a bummer how bad the Solo Knit Band was just by itself.
Yes, which is a shame because the Solo Knit Band is like, I remember seeing when the Vision Pro came out, there was that YouTube channel Jerry Rig Everything who takes them apart and kind of breaks things, and I remember something he said about the Solo Knit Band was he was feeling it, and he says it feels like this was knitted with the love of 1,000 grandmas, and
it's such a good band.
It's so
right.
Good.
It's such a good band, and like most like my PlayStation VR 2 and 1, you can't lay down in bed and use it because you have this thing on the back of your head that's very thick and would hit a wall or pillow. I understand. The benefit of this fabric thing that you can lay down with. But from a comfort perspective, you really do need a top thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, right away, jumping up on like Etsy and Reddit and everything and trying to be like, what are people doing? Some people said, oh, it's just a light seal problem. And so I tried all that and it didn't really help very much. My original light seal was great. And then I saw, okay, there were some 3D printed parts. I was a reader of Justin's blog for a while because of his software engineering stuff, and I actually saw him for the first time was the one who posted, oh, okay, there are 3D printed parts that you can use to adapt the like Quest the Quest ecosystem to Vision Pro, and I thought, okay, like that's great. Let's try that and see how that goes. And so I replicated that setup with some of the 3D printed parts, and that was definitely way more in the right direction. It looked like all this crazy Frankensteining, but I was like, at this point, I don't even care about the aesthetics anymore. I just want to use this thing. And then I kind of kept going from there. There were so many different like 3D printed parts that I tried of like different ones. I tried the SoloTop one that you have. I went to the store, got a second band. At that point, I was kind of realizing that people's heads are clearly so different, because there are people like Viture and you who say that the solo band does wonders for them. And for me, the solo band, like just even messing around with the tightening, the SoloTop rather, all it did was make it feel like even tighter on my face. It didn't feel like it really gave me much.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I found the SoloTop, you definitely can't over tighten. Yeah. It's best like as a medium kind of tightness where it like it's there. It provides some support, but it's not like a ton of support by any means, right? I find the small solo nip band just very adorable. It's just this very cute little band. Like it's the difference between that and a medium is drastic. Like, I don't know, like what, I'm sure there's people listening that's probably their regular band size. And like, I can't, like, I don't know. I'm imagining like teenagers where that's like their, I don't know.
Yeah.
Younger people, but I guess there's people of all different sizes, but it's, and I guess you probably couldn't use the SoloTop if you're a small band person, because it's recommended you have one below it. You know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I have the medium for the regular one, and the small for when I tried SoloTop. And yeah, then from there, I just kept going with like basically everything I could get my hands on. I think I spent way more than I would have liked just trying everything out, being like, I need to make this work. I'm in so deep. And I remember I tried that, the strap that you used to use before SoloTop, the like thick one from that New Zealand company. And that was,
the Velcro
yes,
thing.
And that worked better than SoloTop for me. And so it was definitely,
yeah, from comfort angle, I agree. Much better, but it covered the speaker pods, so that was kind of like a no-go in general for me.
Yes, exactly. That was the exact same reason why I stopped using it. I was like, this is great, and maybe this will still be good as like a travel one, because if I ever use it like on a plane or something, I'll be using AirPods. And so I kind of kept that in the back pocket. For now, I use it as like cushioning in a camera bag. And so I kind of kept going from there. And then the holy grail for me, at least, came in the form of, there's a company that makes I guess mods for other headsets as well, called Globular Cluster. And they were making one for Vision Pro, and they were like, here's the wait list. And so I signed up right away, and I emailed them, and I was like, please, like, let me know the moment you have something. And so they sent me one of their very, very first batches, and I put it on, and it was very similar to the Quest straps from third parties that you could use with the 3D printed parts. But the fact that this one was made for the Vision Pro specifically meant that it was like much better to angle the headset itself. The problem that I had using the Quest one was that while the comfort was way better, I couldn't get the actual lenses to be at the right angle. And so they were always like a little bit either too forward or they were pressed in too hard. And so once I tried the Globular Cluster, it was like, what a relief for me. And so it's way, way bulkier for sure. And it has, the big knob on the back to adjust things. And so it's definitely not the most aesthetically pleasing one, but boy, has that just absolutely changed the game, because now with that one, it has a bunch of the weight distributed on your forehead. It has a Velcro strap that goes from the back to the front, and so you get a little bit on the top. And then on the back, it has this giant pad that they give you actually 3 separate options with, depending on like how kind of how grippy you want it to be on the back of your head. And so I just went for the grippiest one, dialed it all in, and now it's just absolutely solved for me. And so that's the only reason that I can use it.
This is a full replacement then. No, you don't use any of Apple bands.
Correct. Yeah. I took off all the bands. You slide this one onto the Vision Pro little stems on the side, and wearing this one, there's like no time limit basically. Like if I work all day in it, no problem. And this is part of the reason I love it too, and actually I wanted to ask you if you can do this with the SoloTop, is that it lets me use it without the light seal if I wanted to. Is that something?
I haven't tried that. Yeah, I've not tried that with SoloTop. I got that product that lets you do that, but I really didn't take to that at all, because you had to like remove the stems entirely if you wanted to use that product, and that's like a no-go. Like I want to be able to swap in and out really quickly. Does yours? Did you say? Do you need to use the little SIM ejector tool to like remove the stems and put it on?
Nope. No, you don't need to. They kind of just snap on, and you can snap them off. It's pretty nice.
Okay, so it mounts just like the normal headbands do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's super cool. So yeah, you could have that. Say if you like, the fabric bands for some uses, and then maybe for other uses you use that. That sounds like a doable option. That's really a hot swap.
Exactly. And so when I take it out of the house, I won't take this big contraption with me because it doesn't fit in any of the cases. And so I'll just take the Solo Knit one. And to your point from earlier, I did pick up that new Belkin one at the Apple Store because I saw that and I was like, okay, like if Apple is putting its name behind this by selling it in the stores, maybe that one is going to be better. And that one it's very similar to one from a company,
Spigen?
Yes, thank you. That one. And I had gotten that one as well. And the first version of that one was not adjustable. And so I was just like, this is useless. I put it on and I was like, I would totally need to adjust this. So I didn't end up using that one much. But this new Belkin one is totally adjustable. So to me, it's like a better version of the Spigen one. And this one is definitely more... Go ahead.
And you find it comfortable?
Yes. To me, it's nowhere near as comfortable as the full, contraption one, but it's as far as ones that just use the straps, kind of more lightweight ones. This is probably my favorite so far. There's a company called ANNAPRO that has one as well, which is just kind of like the forehead thing. But like you said, I think that one actually is one of the ones that you slide, similar to the Belkin one. You slide it onto the back of the stems, and they have a new version of that coming out like right around now. Wow. Would you believe it? I just got a phone notification that just got delivered. It's downstairs. And so that one people have been pretty excited about. So we'll see if that one's better. And that one's much more pared down. So that could be a good travel solution. But it's been a journey. I'm really happy with the Globular Cluster one. It's totally gotten rid of all the aesthetic vibes of the Vision Pro as being this like sleek thing, but I'm happy as just someone who can now use it all day without having to worry about the comfort.
The Belkin one, would you say you could grab the headset by the Belkin strap, or was that not recommended, you would say?
You could, as far as like sturdiness goes, but the problem is I think the center of gravity is such that if you did that, it would just totally swing forward and kind of be a little precarious. If you have something like the Globular Cluster one, where it's like very sturdy and grips onto the stems, because it's all kind of plastic, it's not so much like a fabric. That one I usually just grab it by the Comfort Mod, and that's great. But I probably wouldn't recommend doing that with the Belkin one. That seems precarious.
Okay, yeah. As much as it pains me to do that, I feel like I probably should get that Belkin one just to know, is this better than this SoloTop? And maybe I try to sell the SoloTop stuff on eBay and just go with the Belkin thing.
Yeah.
Because, if it's more comfortable, it's more comfortable.
Yep.
I mean...
Now,
yeah.
Have you done much travel with the Vision Pro?
Not a bunch. I did a road trip once. We are flying for the holidays, so I am potentially bringing it for that trip. I don't know if I'll end up using it on the plane because we have an infant that I may need to be responsible for. But I'm not sure. I may be able to use it on the plane when she's sleeping and my wife's on duty or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And is your plan just to use the Apple case for that?
Yeah. Did you see the Belkin case at the store? Is that?
Yes.
I know that's an option. I know Waterfield has a really cool one.
Yes. So I've just been going crazy. I got that too, and I picked them both up, and I already had the Apple case, but it's something that is definitely smaller than the Apple case. There was that Waterfield one, but the Apple case was so expensive that I was like, with the Waterfield, I don't know. And I don't travel all that much.
You spend $400 on cases, right?
Yeah. And so I don't travel enough to have gone for the Waterfield one. It's mostly if I like ever brought it to a friend's or something like that. But for the little travel we do have planned, I wanted to see if the Belkin one was that much kind of more pared down, and it's nice. I think it's well built. It's got a clever little lens pad that kind of goes over the lenses so those don't get exposed to anything else that's going around in the case. And it's definitely like just barely big enough to have the stems like stay on the Vision Pro. I did try keeping the Solo knit band on it because it felt like I kind of had to maneuver it a little bit so that it would all fit. So I just took the strap off. But other than that, it's definitely nice. It's well made. So this might be the one that I give a go if I'm brave enough to take it with me.
Is it protective? Like, is it like it's not a? Is it a hard shell in there? Or what is it?
It is not a hard shell. So it's definitely not as protective as the Apple one. I think I would still be nervous. Like with the Apple one, if I was just carrying it and I dropped it, I probably wouldn't be that worried. But I would be worried with this Belkin one.
Yeah, like throwing in the overhead storage. Like, am I concerned that someone's going to have their bag cram stuff in, and then I don't know.
Yes. The Belkin one is just mostly, I think, banking on just having nice padding.
Gotcha. Okay.
Actually, I have it right next to me. Let me confirm that just so I don't spread misinformation. Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Not hard shell at all. It's like a backpack.
Okay. So, yeah, you're basically depending on the other parts of your luggage protecting it in some way.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's funny. People said that the Apple case is so big, and it is big. But I thought it'd be much bigger based on what the internet was saying about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It fits in my suitcase nicely, but it does definitely take up a whole area,
Yeah, that was my concern with bringing it because we always pack light, and so I thought, okay, if I have to take it with me, how am I going to do that? And I actually saw there was another thing I'm considering, but I'm not sure I'm brave enough, which is I forget his name. We can link it. But there's this guy who works at Moog, the synthesizer company, and he's a developer, and he put up this 3D printed thing that he uses to travel with the Vision Pro, which is just basically, how the Apple case has that little pad that you can shift forward and backwards to go up against the lenses.
Right. Yes.
It looks very, very similar to that, and it's just 3D printed, and it has like a little slot that you can put like a Velcro strap through and then an air tag in it. And all it does is it kind of just presses against the light seal. And the idea is that you'd feed a Velcro strap through it. And so you'd kind of just like protect the lenses that way. And so what he does is he just takes the little protective pad that comes for the front glass on the Vision Pro, slots that onto the front, slaps this little 3D printed part onto the back to protect the lenses, and just throws that into his backpack. And so then it's like, okay, now he's like, okay, I can put sweaters behind it and everything. And so it takes up like way, way, way less space. But I'm not sure I'm that brave. I do have Apple Care, but I'm still scared.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like Matt Birchler was on one of the podcasts. Was just like, I just throw it in with t-shirts wrapped around.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's tough, especially because the outside screen is not just like the it's not like smartphone glass or something like that. It's closer to, it's not quite plastic scratchable, but I think it is way more susceptible, and so I'm always a little bit nervous.
Yeah. So there were reports of the middle part of the screen having a line come through the middle of it, right?
Yes, the hairline crack. And I saw that people were reporting that, and people were like, oh, I wonder if that's because that's happening when you leave it in the Apple case with the battery connected all night or something like that, and it's something like that causes it. And thankfully, I've not experienced that. I don't know about you.
I finally am noticing it on mine.
No way. That's awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, everyone was reporting initially that being a thing right away. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I would store it in the Apple case. It would get hot in there. No issues. It's not all the way up, but it's like a very little, like maybe a centimeter tall at the very, very bottom.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, what caused it really. If I always had this fear of my wedding band, like it taps things, like it's a hard piece of metal. Like, did I accidentally like tap it or whatever, or like what was the cause? But not a huge problem really. Like, it's not over any of the cameras. It's a very tiny little thing, and just visually, it's not as nice. And I don't know if Apple will, if that would be even Apple Care replaceable, because it's not it's purely cosmetic at this point.
Yeah. Do you have Apple Care?
I do. I was like, these displays, if anything happens, I don't want to, yeah. So I'm on the monthly Apple Care. This is one thing I definitely want to cover. So it is covered.
Yeah. I would hope that they're aware that this has been happening frequently enough that they're like, okay, fine. But you never know.
Yeah. So at some point I might reach out and see and get another cable at some point, you know. I wish you could just buy that cable on the Apple Store. It's very annoying you can't buy that replacement battery cable. Seems like it should be a part you can just buy versus going through Apple Care every time.
Definitely. But I am separate from that. I am really happy that it's a detachable battery, because that makes me think like the hardware itself for the headset will last so much longer than other products with batteries in them, where it's like 20 years down the line, you can just find a way to power it and it would just boot up no problem.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I love that it's like a giant lightning connector in there. It's like, this is so beautiful.
Yeah.
How they designed this thing. And I'm imagining that battery is doing more than just there's more in there than just the battery. So how cool it would be if there would be aftermarket batteries that were bigger that you could hook up to it, but that I don't think will ever be a thing.
Yeah, that would be great. I know so many people that use just like an additional battery pack as well and just USB-C in, but I haven't.
Yeah, I have the biggest. I've done that. Yeah, I have the Anchor one, the biggest one they sell, and it's got the little display on it to tell you how much time is left as you're using it, and I will daisy chain those if I'm away from my power, the wall, and it's a very nice little way to have a longer runtime for sure.
Yeah. Do you just put those both in your pocket and just?
I have done that before. And I will say that Vision Pro drains the huge battery thing pretty fast. It's impressive.
Yeah.
So, accessibility tweaks.
Yes.
I'm very curious what you've done here.
Yeah. So
because I've played around with the one I played around with is grayscale mode. I'm not sure if you've done that at all. It is wild having pass-through camera be in grayscale.
Yes.
As if you're colorblind.
Yes. I tried that after I saw that you talked about that, and that was definitely super fun. Although I was bummed a bit to see that the color filter accessibility settings are not as full featured as they are on like iOS, where
I can't do a full red mode. So at night I can't say. I'm not sure if you do this. Instead of night shift, I do the thing where it only shows red colors. I will watch movies like that late at night, and with my daughter, to help her sleep, if she needs some kind of screen, I'll put in the red mode, and no blue light at all. Like that's the night shift that Apple should have enabled as at the extreme end of things.
Yep, I do exactly the same thing. I have my sleep focus mode trigger the color filter, and exactly that. I will have just the red one dialed up as hard as it goes, and it's awesome.
And it's so annoying. Apple Watch does not have a way to do this either.
Yes.
There's the red mode on the Ultra, but there's no way to just color filter to make everything red.
Yep.
Baffling that they don't have this as everywhere. And the nightstand mode it's not red either. Apple obviously knows this because the Apple Watch Ultra has the red face for night.
Yes.
But Apple should get on top of this.
I totally agree. I'm here with a lowly Series 9 and missing out on the red watch faces. I wish, but I did try that on the Vision Pro, and if it was red, I would totally use that at night because that would be great. But the color pass through is definitely a fun thing to try. I thought maybe there are those handful of immersive environments that are just like autumn lights or something like that. And I was hoping that one of them, they're very, very light. They're very, it's not a very pronounced effect. And there was one that was a little bit more on the red side. And I thought, oh, maybe this will do it. And still, it's not quite much of an effect.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And hopefully they'll add more of those stuff. And and shortcuts accessibility with that. I've always looked will they add a shortcut for color filters? And still not there yet.
Yeah. So for other accessibility tweaks, I think every single time there's an OS update, I'll just dive back in and I'll look through all of them. Thankfully, there's no accessibility tweaks that I need to use just to use the device in general, thankfully, but I always see accessibility tweaks as just awesome for everyone. And so I always dive in there to see, okay, how can I use these? And the few that I have grown to love, I think one of them was just mostly used during visionOS 1. Now in visionOS 2, I almost never use this one, but there was the Assistive Touch feature exists on Vision Pro, and similar to the iOS one, where it's like the little floating dot that you can just tap and you have the little menu of actions that you can take. You can configure it similarly on visionOS. And what I had done on visionOS 1 is just configure it to a single tap, just simply take me to the home view. And that accessibility, I think they call it Assistive Touch. That's what they call it. The Assistive Touch little button, it will be visible everywhere. So even if you're in an immersive view, you'll always see it. And so I always kind of had it in my periphery, because in visionOS 1, I either had to tap the physical button on the headset, or I had to crank the eyes into the back of my head and look at the control center thing. And just being able to look to my side wherever I was and put it wherever I wanted and just tap that little Assistive Touch thing and it takes you home was super, super nice. So that was a nice tweak. But now I guess with visionOS 2, the gesture is so slick. And the only time I ever really use the Assistive Touch one is still when I'm in an immersive environment or immersive app of any kind, because when you're in that, the home gesture takes multiple taps for it to, you have to like tap once for it to show the little circle and then tap again to actually do it. So
yeah, they need to do better about when I'm in fully immersive. If I do the little flip over hand thing, it doesn't always see my hand. Like,
yes,
it should always see your hand. Like if I'm in immersive, it should be no different.
Yep. I agree. I guess it must be tough to balance that with like custom gestures that an app might have.
Sure. Yeah.
But another one that's great is the reduce white point feature. That one's awesome because what it does is it just kind of makes all the displays a little bit dimmer. And so there is a brightness control, but I found that what I wanted to do was a lot of the times I just needed to make it a little bit dimmer just for like a short little while, and going back and forth between settings to change the brightness and stuff was a bit too much of a hassle. And the most frequent use of it was for when I'm in Mac Virtual Display, and usually I have dark mode on as many things as I can, but occasionally, especially if I'm doing something for work, and we sadly don't have dark mode in our UIs at work, and so whenever I need to see something there, it's just searing, just plain white. And and so when I'm doing that, I've set up the accessibility shortcut on the Vision Pro to just flip reduce white point. And so you just do the triple tap on the digital crown and it'll make everything a little bit darker. And so when I have to, spend 20 minutes using that, I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to do a little triple tap on here. It makes everything a little bit darker. And so now my eyes can sort of feel better and adjust. And then when I'm done, you just triple tap again and it flips back up. And so that's nice and comfortable.
Very cool. That sounds like a great little hack to sometimes at night. It is blinding, like, because I keep it at max brightness because, like, I'm watching movies. I want that bright, but yeah, the white point thing. So it just kind of dims the image a bit.
Yeah, exactly. It just dims everything, and so it's nice and comfortable. And one more that I'll say.
Nice. Yeah.
One last one is there is a manual like display adjustment setting that you can access if you go into the like eyes and displays menu. I think it should be the same for everyone. I'm using the Zeiss inserts, but when it lists those, there's like a three little dot button, and you go in there and there's kind of settings on that, and they have like three big presets of like near, normal, and far or something like that for how the system treats things. But they have this button under that's like manual adjust, and when you tap that, it like takes you into this mode that's kind of similar to the initial startup setup where it'll like do the eye tracking setup. And in that mode, you can have this dial, and it'll let you adjust it left and right to like near and far to really dial in what's the most comfortable. And so what they do is they'll show 3 different distances of text boxes, and so it'll say just keep adjusting them until your eyes are most comfortable. And that's made a nice difference for me as well. Not that it was bad beforehand, but being able to just really finely dial that in is way more comfortable over time for me.
So what it's is it changing the default window distance, or what is it actually doing?
I unfortunately I don't know the specifics. It's funny if you go to the settings, not to the like this whole like immersive mode where they let you do it, but just the ones where you flip it from near to far. If you flip it between them, it does some sort of like jump where like things change and your eyes feel like, whoa, like I have to kind of refocus. And so I don't know what exactly is going on.
Because far should be most comfortable for the entire population, because that's where your ciliary muscle is completely relaxed at a certain distance, and that should be the default, I would think.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because so the Vision Pro I think still has a fixed focal distance for like how things appear for your eyes to focus on. And I think
it does.
I think it's like,
I have no idea what that is. I've heard different answers, and I'm not sure what's real.
Right. I think it's in the neighborhood of like 1.5 meters, something like that, which is, I think, done so that that's sort of like the natural resting point of your eyes, I think. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely noticed.
Yeah, like hypothetically, like if done correctly, Vision Pro may be better for your eye health than sitting at like your Mac desktop with a monitor close to you.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Where normally, if I'm working at the office and I'm working all day at my desk, by the end of the day, my eyes are definitely tired, and I try to take breaks, and I have the blue light glasses or whatnot. I have no idea if those do anything, but by the end of the day, I can definitely feel some strain. And if I work all day in Vision Pro when I'm at home, by the end of the day, I feel nothing. I just feel comfortable, and so that I don't know what the studies show long term, but my experience has been it's way more comfortable for my eyes.
Yeah, from my understanding, like the basics on eye health, from my understanding, is basically if you're in close-up mode for too long, the ciliary muscle will spasm, where it makes it hard for you to see at a distance. And at that point, some people are in this mode all the time, where that muscle is just spasming, has a spasm, and you can never see at a distance clearly. Then you go to the eye doctor, and they throw the glasses on. And of course, it makes it better. But if you just went outside and looked at a distance for a couple hours, take a hike, it would have cleared up. Because you didn't do that, you're now in glasses for the rest of your life, and your eyes adapt to whatever's in front of them, and you get worse and worse vision because they're adapting to that lens that's now in front of your eye all the time. And that's kind of the circle of why more and more people in the world have glasses and have worse vision than they used to, like even 50 years ago, whatever it was. So that's kind of the sad circle we're in as we're all just looking up close all the time. And if Vision Pro is done correctly, like if Apple thought of this stuff, this potentially has a cool ramification and maybe not being in close-up mode as often, and maybe better vision overall. But we'll see.
Yeah,
how that all plays out.
Yeah. I recently this week actually went to the optometrist to get my eyes checked, and it's been a year since I got my prescription that I used for the inserts. And thankfully, my prescription's only changed a little bit, but now I'm sort of faced with that question of like, oh man, it's like a little bit better because I'm getting new glasses. Should I get new inserts? Pay another $150? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my general thoughts are like, the lower prescription, the better as far as like eye health overall. Like to keep ratcheting it up, like you're telling your eye to adapt to that new distance. By using higher prescriptions, like your eye will progressively get worse to adapt to that. And like I try to use the minimum prescription I can for the distance I'm looking at. And I don't know also if the prescription was done with the focal distance in mind for Vision Pro. Like, did you have a separate prescription done for focal distance for Vision Pro versus distance in real life kind of thing?
I didn't. I thought about that, but thankfully I don't think my prescription's quite bad enough for that to be a huge difference, but I totally forgot about that. You're so right. I should have totally asked. Yeah.
Or I'm not sure if you're wanting to share this, but are you like in the -2 to 3 range? Are you 5 or 6, or how bad are your eyes at this point?
Yeah. Exactly. More on the low end, like -2.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And I would say, like, if your visual acuity is fine the way it is, don't bother getting new inserts, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything still feels so crisp. So I'll probably stick with it. You're right.
Yeah. That's when I was like, oh, that's a little blurry. Let me change it. It is. I'm so curious when I do get another pair. Like, at some point, I want to get a different thing just to see how low I can go in Vision Pro without it being like that. I really wish there was a way. I don't know. Apple needs to do things to follow the laws in this country, but I really wish I could go to the Apple store and tell them, give me these inserts. I want to see what this looks like inside the headset. Because I'm just like guessing, like with the optometrist is like, let's try this focal distance, and it's just like I want to know like what's the lowest I could actually put in this headset and have a good experience, because I don't know that.
Yeah, it's tough because you they have the inserts at the store, but they won't let you.
Yeah, they won't tell you. Yeah, you can bring in glasses and they'll try to match it to that. So that'd be the only way to like bring in a couple pairs of glasses and like have them match that, and that'd be your way of testing, I guess. But it is cool. They recognize different lenses when you put them in. I'm very curious if I get a second set of lenses. Like, I wonder how. Like, it seems that it's like doing different optic ID scans when you do that. So I'm wondering what the limit of scans are for that, or if it's the same scan for all lenses.
Yeah,
how that works.
That's a good question. I don't know, because I remember when you unbox the prescription lenses, there's like a QR code on the front that you use sort of for pairing. And so I wonder how that works. Yeah.
Yeah, because you definitely do different optic ID scans for no lenses versus lenses. So that'd be a way for you to share with your spouse if your spouse didn't have lenses, for instance.
That's true.
But I'm very curious, if you have two sets of lenses, is it sharing that same scan or whatnot?
Yeah. No, that's good. I would try that if only my spouse had any interest whatsoever.
Right. Mine also no interest, which is fine.
Yeah, that's totally fine. In fact, we have a rule that like if we have anything more than like a 5-second conversation, it's got to come off. And because she hates the eyesight, she's like, it's so weird. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I will have full conversations many minutes long. Totally normal thing now. Yeah. So you're in New York City. Did you end up going to the Cube for yours, or what store did you opt to go to for this?
Yes, great question. So I thought very carefully about this. I first of all wanted to make sure that I think there was a lot of uncertainty when the pre-orders were launching of like, is this going to sell out instantly? Is it going to be weeks out? And so my thought was twofold.
It is funny. Yeah, it's so funny. Those early days, like, oh my gosh, let me get in there right away. And the scanning, we're all stressed out, and supply constraints really not there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember people being like, is it going to be totally back ordered for the whole year? All that sort of thing. And so my thinking was, I know that the Cube in New York City is usually the one where like Tim Cook shows up and everything. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to deliberately choose not to go to the Cube so that I have a better shot at first getting one, and also like having like an early appointment or something like that, getting before the craze and everything. And so there's one not too far from the Cube on the Upper West Side of New York City. And that one's also basically a giant cube, just not the famous Cube. And so I went there, and I was lucky enough to have the first appointment at the store. And so I've never had that experience where you're like ushered in and like all the employees start clapping and cheering you on, and you're like received and you're taken back, and everyone's like, you're the first one. And they're like, it's the first time using the glasses scanning tool that we have here. And they bring it out on the little platter, and everyone's like, wow, this is so exciting. Like there was like a small crowd of employees watching it because they were like, do you want to do the demo? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And everyone was like, oh man, here we go. And so that was great. The Apple employee that was at the store, Jeannie, I still remember her. She made such a great impression. She was this lovely, lovely woman who said she's been working at the Apple store since around the iPad launch. And so that was super fun. And she was like, this is also like a huge thing and all this memorable stuff. And so Tim Cook was at the Cube, but I think I was happy with my decision because during my demo, I was so blown away by like everything about it, from the resolution to the OS and everything, that it's supposed to be like a 20-minute demo, but I think I couldn't move on because I was so floored by things. Like I was being so probably such a geek about it in that way, where the moment we brought up a menu like in the Photos app or something, I was like, hold on, I'm sorry, we need to pause. Are you seeing the resolution on the back button? Oh my God, look at this arrow. It's so crisp. Because coming from using all the other headsets, like there are people that try Vision Pro and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty good, but I wish the resolution was higher. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, have you tried the other things that are out there? Like coming from like the Quest lineup and things, like this is just amazing. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. So the whole experience was great.
Yeah. It is funny, since I still use PlayStation VR 2, I really have to use that device first in the day.
Yeah. If
I use it second, it's just instantly obvious how terrible those displays are in comparison, even though it's an HDR screen. They're great screens for gaming especially, but it's like, oh my gosh, it looks like crap now. And it's funny, like I have the PSVR 1 now as well, and that display is just so much worse. But like if I start the day on the first one, it's like it's all right. Then you just gradually get better and better. But yeah, it is amazing how your mind just like adapts to what's in front of it. But if you start at the Vision Pro level, it's like the Quest 2 essentially would look like just crap.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would think with PSVR that I guess once you're in the game, you probably think about it a little bit less, hopefully. But it does seem like a downgrade.
You definitely do, except for when you have to read text in Resident Evil or something like that. It's like this text is just so... but yeah, like if you're racing, you're being blinded by the sun with those nice bright screens. You are reminded how much better the field of view is in PSVR 2 when you put it on, like, oh, I can see more peripheral or whatever as far as the screens. They're better in that way.
Yes. And that was something I was going to say earlier with the experience of using it without a light seal is really interesting, because the pass-through on Vision Pro, putting kind of the resolution of the pass-through aside, the work that they did to make it not warp everywhere and like make things all weird and wobbly like a funhouse mirror, like when you put on one of the Quest headsets and you like just move, even your hand is just like warping all over the place. And I don't notice that at all on Vision Pro. And I thought, okay, well, like, is it going to feel weird if I don't use the light seal because my eyes see one thing on the displays and something else in real life? And so the first time I put it on, I looked at this like, straight lamp that we have here in the living room, and from the displays to my actual vision, it lined up perfectly. And I thought, like, that's just incredible. And so it kind of makes you feel like the field of view is way bigger. The windows do kind of get cut off, of course, as you hit the edge of the displays, but it does feel like really nice and open. So I would give it a shot if you've never done it, just to see what it's like.
For sure, yeah. And it's interesting to use that and being able to see more peripheral vision that way. That's the one thing that would probably really inspire an upgrade, though. Like, they're talking about the M5 Vision Pro. It's like, okay, that's cool. It's necessary to do those spec bumps. But the thing that would really inspire an upgrade to me more than lightness or anything like that is just like bigger displays that let me see more, get rid of the binocular vision,
Yeah. Did you ever receive that Apple survey on Vision Pro?
Never, no.
Because they sent it, I guess, probably to a subgroup of people. And it was this long survey that they ask you all this feedback on how you're liking Vision Pro. And the last question is, if you could change just one thing about Vision Pro, what would it be? And so I guess that would have been your answer.
That would have, yeah. Would that have been yours, or is
a
different answer for you?
I said, well, that would be nice. My answer for me was just, I basically said, please do literally anything to improve the comfort, because like the journey that I went through, and like I can't imagine how many people probably tried this and either gave up on it or don't use it as much, just purely based on comfort. And so it's like there are plenty of things that they could do to improve the reach and the ecosystem of like getting more developers on board. And I know they're doing those tiny little visionOS WWDCs here and there, and that's awesome to see. But I think the comfort for people to just, from the moment they put it on, to be on board, I think is going to be a important one long term.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer for helping this platform take off more, for sure. I'm just selfish in the fact that I really want more screen, please. It is amazing revisiting. I do this thing where I watch a director's entire filmography from start to end. I'm started Spielberg now that Sugarland Express, the 4K remaster, finally hit Apple TV. So it is amazing revisiting these movies and seeing them in ways even when I had a home theater projector set up, just this is better than that. You know?
Yes. I heard that you were doing this, and it kind of inspired me to do not the same thing, but to kind of go through some like older classic movies that I probably hadn't seen in many years and like revisit them. So I was watching like, the early Terminator movies, or like the early Back to the Futures or Jurassic Park, and those kinds of classics.
Yeah.
And just like the immersiveness and like a level of appreciation, because those are all movies that I never got to see in theaters, of course. And so the best that I had was seeing them on like a TV in the living room. And so to be able to watch those in such a expansive theater environment, it's like, wow, this feels really special.
Yeah, totally. Like I was watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's like, oh man, that ending was just like kicking the Vision Pro. It's like, so good. And it's like, in the aspect ratio things is also cool. Like 4:3 movies, perfectly formatted there, and yeah, it's great for that stuff too. Because outside of exploring different apps and stuff, video consumption is probably a thing for you. Do you get much time to just enjoy entertainment here?
I don't get a lot of time, but I usually try to do one movie on the weekends, and I'll just pick that, and I'll have the Mac in the immersed environment as well. And then of course, at the moment that Apple puts out something with immersive video, I'll like drop everything and watch that. Be like, I'm so starved for this. Please, like, give me as much as I can handle. Yeah.
Have you tried any of the IMAX rentals in there? In the IMAX app?
I haven't tried the rentals. I've just watched the trailers in there, and I really like the environment that they have in there. So I should probably use that more. But no, most of the time it's an Apple one.
I would definitely rent some stuff in there. I know BBC has a bunch of stuff in there now, but there's some 3D content in there as well that really rips, which is cool.
Yeah.
And they're probably like 45 minutes to an hour, the films they release there, and yeah, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
To experience that way.
I'll give it a shot.
And then as far as visionOS 2, it's been out a while. We've talked about 2.2, but just overall visionOS 2, what have you appreciated, and is there anything new in there that you're not liking that you preferred back from visionOS 1?
Yes. Well, the gesture, as we've talked about, for like the home screen and flipping it over, I think is just amazingly executed. I know the Quest ecosystem had something similar, and I always found it kind of finicky. Like, you had to get your hand just in the right spot and like basically press this button that's in the air, and I had to do it like 3 times before it would work. Whereas the visionOS one, like the moment that little circle shows up, it works 100% of the time. And similarly, when you flip your hand, I would like flip it back and forth as fast as I could, and it would keep up. And I was like, wow, this is just so great. So that one is just...
I would love if you could add Apple Watch complications to that mode in some way.
Yes. Oh, that would be so great. That's, I hadn't thought about that. That's genius, of like just making that little flip over thing just a little bit more information dense. That'd be awesome.
Right. Yeah.
And then, so we had that in the kind of initial control center menu, which is, I always got a little bit confused on how they called it that, because it's like you tap on the little settings thing to bring up control center, but then they have an option in there called control center. So whatever they call the initial one, they moved the Mac virtual display up a level to be on that initial one.
Yes.
And that was just, I was like, wow, what a no-brainer. This is great. I'm so glad they did this. I don't use that one all that much because I usually get connected through the shortcut. But for when I'm doing like movie watching and I want to connect like that, or when I connect to the Mac Mini, that's just like the nice little quality of life that adds up.
Yeah. The search icon should be at that same level. I don't know why it's
Yes.
buried the way it is.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I completely agree. I try to use Siri as often as I can to open things, but there's plenty of times where I don't remember the exact name, or something I like with that Spotlight search is that it does show you like the recommended apps. And a lot of the time there's something in there that I want, because, trying stuff out, I have like, I don't know how many apps installed, like over 100. And it's just navigating that home screen is just absolutely just trudging along. I use both hands and like swipe, and try to get to where I am.
Yeah, I've got like 3 or 4 pages organized, and after that, it's chaos after that.
Yes, I made the big mistake of like, oh, I updated to visionOS 2. Let me try to move one app on the home screen to see what that experience is like. And once you do that, your alphabetical setting is just gone, and now all of the stuff just appears wherever. And
yeah, I think it's worth it to just like, let me have the first 4 pages organized. You have your whatever entertainment screen, you have your work screen, and like maybe a game screen, and then after that it can be chaos or something. And then hopefully we'll get App Library in a year or two.
Yeah, or even just folders. I would love folders. And
yeah, that would be amazing. Right? Something as basic as a folder.
Yes, and I think it just, I feel teased because clearly folders exist, because that's where they have the compatible apps for the iPad, and so they just haven't exposed it.
Yeah, and the density of those apps in the compatible apps folder is so much greater.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. And similarly with the compatible apps in visionOS 2, one of the first settings I tweaked was iPad apps can now run in dark mode, and that was just game changer. Like Slack that I had for work, now it can be in dark mode. I had Overcast in dark mode finally, which is great. 1Password, great in dark mode. All those iPad apps that I have to use, so that's very welcome. Then what else? Oh, something I wonder if you've noticed with visionOS 1. If I didn't use the Vision Pro for like more than a day, and I came back to it, the battery would almost always be fully drained, and so I'd have to make sure to either have it charging.
Okay.
Probably like, 30 minutes before I wanted to use it or something like that. visionOS 2, I noticed that the battery does not drain anywhere near as fast. And so I could leave it for like a few days and it still got like 50% charge. And I don't know what they did to adjust that, but that is awesome. I love that.
Does yours not power off after 24 hours?
It does. And not only that, but
So that's what they did. They just power it off, right?
Yeah, but I feel like that happened on visionOS 1 as well, where it would power off. And maybe I'm making it up in my experience, but I feel like when I grab it, I'm like, oh wow, what a pleasant surprise. And
yeah, I don't have much experience there because most days I'm using it within 24 hours. So I just have vague memories of how it behaved in 1 and now 2, because it's so rare that I go a day without using it.
Yep. And then another huge thing that really unlocked a lot for me as far as like universal control is that I would say, unfortunately, I don't type in the QWERTY layout on the keyboard. So probably like 10 years ago, I had some tendon pain in my hands and things like that, and I read about switching to the Dvorak layout and how that should help, and so I did that, and it was a huge learning curve, and my brain was broken for 2 months, and now I got back up, and it actually did help my hands, and so I'm still using that because I don't want my brain to be broken again. I need to type for work, and so I can't afford to switch back to QWERTY.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Does that mean like your laptop? Does that mean your laptop you can't use normally, like how you would normally type then, right?
Yeah, good question. So thankfully, there are built-in alternate layouts into macOS, and they have actually a bunch, including Dvorak. And so I just have that set globally.
Just the keys would, right, and the keys would not reflect what the digital layout is then, right?
Yeah, that's right. So you have to be able to touch type, otherwise you're out of luck. And
you haven't done something as crazy as trying to manually replace and move the keys around, have you?
No, because I never look down anyway, and so I was like, you know what, it's fine. And
okay,
it happens frequently enough that if I'm like either working on something with my wife or like at the office and someone needs to hop on my computer, they can still use it just fine. And
Gotcha. Yeah.
But the problem with that was, and by the way, for anyone listening, if you're thinking about switching to Dvorak, I don't recommend it, because then you can't use any other computer unless you switch it to Dvorak somehow. And then you have situations like this where you go to use some operating system or some software and it just doesn't support it. So what I found instead, if you're having problems, it was only like 5 years later that I found the world of like split keyboards, and that has made all the difference to me. And so that's the way to go.
And I think probably just changing keyboards, having like maybe 3 or 4 different ones, you'd have different. That'd probably help too, having different throw distances and stuff, I'd imagine.
Yes. Yeah. I think anything like that would help probably more than switching your layout, in my opinion, at least, because the layout switch is just so brutal. And so, but the problem was that visionOS does not support, or did not support, Dvorak in visionOS 1. It didn't support any alternative layouts besides like languages. And so when I used universal control and I would type on the MacBook keyboard, it would just be in QWERTY. And so I was like, that's a bummer. So now I could use universal control to just like click basically, but I couldn't use the keyboard for anything. And so I got pretty good at like flicking my eyes around the keyboard to type like that. But I was like, I hope one day. And so that was one of the first things I checked on visionOS 2. And thank goodness they added system layouts for that. And so now I have Dvorak, it all works. And so now universal control is like amazing now. That's
great. I didn't know that was a thing. I'm glad it is there.
Yeah. So that's it as far as like visionOS 2 stuff. But for visionOS 3, I have very few wishes. I think most of my wishes are like hardware side, because now that we have the ultrawide, I'm like, okay, this is great. I am totally satisfied with this feature. I love it. For visionOS 3, I would love something that developers seem to be trying to find ways to get around, is the fact that Apple, it seems, hasn't released ways to show basically immersive video that is not created by Apple. And so they have like the ability to play it back in the Apple TV app, but all these creators that have, all these huge camera rigs and they're trying to do it themselves, even in like custom made apps for it, there is a limit to how high of a resolution and frame rate they can show relative to what Apple's able to do in their Apple TV app. So I would love to see them expose that to third-party developers, because some of the content that they've shot is just awesome, but you can tell that it's just not as crisp as the immersive video. So I would love that. Another one. Do you remember when they first announced the Vision Pro and WWDC, there was a feature that they called Skyview? Do you remember this?
Skyview? I don't think so.
Skyview was one, they had it briefly shown. And so what it was is it was a mode. They later actually went back and updated the announcement video to remove this scene, but I think that you could probably still find it online. And what it was is it was like, you can always like kick back and relax and have it go into this mode where it recognizes the ceiling in your room and then makes the ceiling look like the sky. And so it'll have clouds. And so your entire room is still the same, but just the ceiling makes it look like you have these clouds above you. And so they have this woman like leaning back and dialing in the sky view and just like relaxing that way. And something like that could be fun to have back. I wonder where that went. And then
and I hope Apple does more with understanding your layout of your room and the mesh. It does a mesh capture, but I'd love to be able to mount stuff to walls and all that.
Yes. Yeah, I know they have the like tabletop kit in visionOS 2, but I don't know how well that works with wall surfaces instead of just like flat ones. But I wonder if do you think they'll ever do environments that are inside?
I don't know. I mean, I could definitely see bigger, like a museum that's like a big open space inside.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Because
I wonder how they would do with claustrophobic stuff like caves. Like, would they put us inside a cave or something?
Yes, I'm sure they worry about like if they had a interior environment that people would get confused and try to walk around more in it, and it would somehow be more dangerous or something. But I know they have, if you fire up the simulator for visionOS, they have a few environments there that you can use. And so they have that like living room one, and they have one that's in a museum and stuff. And I know one of them, people have found ways. I actually haven't tried this. I should. They found ways to sideload basically the simulator environment onto the headset itself. And so and it's literally called like Apple Studio or something like that, or Studio environment. And you can just use that way. So that might be fun. But I would love, I mean, obviously more environments in general, but interior ones as well, just to have like a different kind of work environment. Like I know in the Quest headsets on the Immersed app, they had a bunch of like, coffee shop environments, or like, log cabin or something like that. And those were all great.
Yeah. I would love, I've said this before, but I would love if movies could provide environments. Like imagine watching E.T. from an E.T. environment or something.
Ooh, yes. Oh, that's great. That'd be like a great marketing thing too, for sure.
Yeah, like they do iTunes Extras. That should be a part of the bundle that they can submit.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great idea. Excellent. I love iTunes Extras. Those were great.
They were. And that's one thing, visionOS 3, we really need iTunes Extra support, so I don't have to open up Movies Anywhere to view those extras, which I'm so happy Movies Anywhere is a visionOS native app, which is so great. And I've also started using Crunchyroll recently. I got PlayStation sent me a 2-month free trial to Crunchyroll, so I took advantage of that, and I'm finally watching Attack on Titan, and what an experience in the Vision Pro. And with visionOS 2, Crunchyroll integrates with the system-wide environment, so I can watch that from the moon or wherever I want from Apple.
Yes. Oh, I love that when you can kind of just push it out, and on some of the environments that does the reflection.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes. Yeah. So good. So with visionOS 3, what are your kind of hopes that get addressed?
I think the biggest thing is probably more stuff for developers. I know it's tough to handle, but I have faith that they can try to figure something out where I know in visionOS 2, they gave the enterprise apps a bunch more tools for development. And so they gave them access to the camera, and I'm not sure if they gave them eyesight access, but at least definitely the camera. And I just wish that they would say, if you're going to make an app that does this, we'll throw up like 3 permission prompts being like, are you sure you want to give camera access? This is a big deal kind of thing. But being like, let me just unlock more of the potential. And I think it's great that they've taken such a privacy focused stance for keeping your eyesight protected. But I feel like the camera, it's something that people are already used to doing with their phones, giving camera access for whatever reason. And I'd love to see that opened up more.
Yeah, the camera stuff, like, it's such a shame that you can't do anything with it. Like, that is such a important API to open up. So hopefully they learn from the business apps that are doing this and can actually figure out how to do that, because yeah, it could open up so many different types of apps.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that'd be a big deal.
And from a work perspective, what kind of code are you writing for your day job? Do you do much with Swift, or is that something you're looking at doing so you can write your own visionOS apps? And if you were a developer for visionOS, what is the missing app that you'd love to see made?
That's funny. I was thinking of asking you the same question. I've done a little Swift, but I haven't jumped into visionOS development just yet beyond like some initial stuff in the simulator. So that's something I would love to focus on outside of work, because at work it's just server side stuff and then just like web development beyond that. So definitely thinking about other stuff that could be done in visionOS. I'm definitely most interested in like either volume-based stuff or fully immersive stuff. I like the idea of being able to make your Swift UI app just kind of universal. But I'm most excited by what we could do if there's more like 3D stuff involved, more interactions and things like that. but I don't have like a specific killer thing that I'm thinking of just yet. Nor would my skills on the outset be enough to build something like that. But what about you? Is there anything in mind that you're like, oh man, the tools are all out there. Someone just needs to make this.
I mean, I wish Rapid Weaver was an iPad OS and visionOS. Like, I really miss that app for website creation because it's still only on the Mac. That's probably not a great answer because, like, everyone's in the Squarespace these days. But I really, I can't. I'm not good at that tool. Like, it just does not generate the kind of websites I would like to have.
Yeah. One thing I did think of, I wonder if it's even possible with the current SDKs, is that the MacBooks that used to have the touch bar, I never liked the touch bar because I always love having to just not look down on my keyboard to adjust things, so like volume or brightness or anything. And so with the touch bar, you kind of have
touch bar should have been. Yeah, the touch bar should have been a bunch of keys with little screens in them that would change.
Yeah, like Stream Deck style.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one thought I wonder if you can build with the current tools basically like a visionOS touch bar that would communicate with the Mac. And so you can have that just hanging below your Mac virtual display and use that to make any adjustments. So that might be fun.
That would be super cool. Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe next time we speak, I'll give it a go.
Yeah. And then, so you have over 100 apps, as you've mentioned. You're trying a bunch of stuff up. Probably closer to what, 300 apps? I don't know. What have been some of your favorite discoveries and things you've experienced on the headset so far?
Yeah, I think there have been a bunch of cool ones. Most of them are probably like on the simpler side at first, but I think ones that are experimenting with, for example, like trying to make their own environments, I think are really fun. So I mentioned Moon Portal before, and that one's great. They have a bunch of stuff where they actually also have a video player called Moon Player, I want to say, which you can also do to watch, movies and stuff like that you have the files for. And what they did in a recent update is that you can go into their Moon Portal app and kind of create your own environment, so to speak, with I think it's like with AI tools. I haven't actually tried this one yet because I don't have an AI subscription, but you can use that to like generate a big image that becomes the immersive environment, and then export that to their like player and have that be the environment that you watch your movie in. And so those kinds of ideas are really neat. Like, I like that sort of a customization there. There are one or two apps that are trying immersive video style content where they film, like really, really high resolution video. And so there's one that I'm on the test flight for, which is called Amplium, and that one's pretty neat. And then there's another one called Vibescape that was pretty early on out on the App Store, and it's kind of like I think it's mostly a meditation app, but from the third-party developers that aren't like the big corporations. The Vibescape app has these immersive environments that are like not all that far off on quality from Apple's. And so they have one where it's like you're on a large rock in like a foggy forest or something, and it's supposed to be like a immersive environment that you can go to and do the meditation part of the app. And the developer for that, I'm blanking on their name, but we can put it in the show notes. They've done some like short YouTube videos as well, and like how they even accomplish that to create high enough resolution immersive environments. And so I think stuff like that is really, really impressive, that they like take the kind of limited tools that we have and make that a reality, I guess. And let's see.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And then maybe just one or two more. I mentioned Instant Bar. That's like my total favorite one as far as like glanceable information. Another great one was Glance Bar, and that one incorporates more like
I love Glance Bar.
Yeah, that one's really nicely done too. It was too much for what I needed because it wanted to have like calendar or reminders and stuff, but it's also really, really nicely built. And then lastly, Frame It. Have you heard of this one?
What's it called?
Frame It.
Frame It. I have a couple. I have one where like you give it a photo, like a panoramic photo, and it puts like a window. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Is it
that's
different?
probably a different one. I think I know which one you're talking about. I have that one too.
Okay. Yeah, because there's this app that's really nifty where you'll feed it a panorama photo, and then you can move this window around your room, and it gives you that part of the panorama through this window, which is, I think, a super cool thing. I occasionally use it, and it's very relaxing for some of the photos I have there. And yeah. So what is Frame It?
So Frame It is one where it's for basically creating sets of framed photos. And so the developer, it came out months ago, but the developer has been like continuously putting in work, and now it's like super fully featured, and you can really do a lot of customization. And so what it does is it does something to map the room and align with your walls. And so when you put out a frame, it'll like not snap it onto the wall like a table kit style thing, but just align it nicely. And then you have these like sets of frames that you can do. So it's got all these like different, crowning designs and framing styles. You can change the colors, make them big and small and stuff, and you can make these sets. And so if you wanted like a bunch of photos of whatever, it's nice to be able to open that up, and it's like, okay, I want this like photo set just for this like session just to have up. Or if I wanted to maybe see how I would arrange something that I'm going to actually print out, I'll use that. But I just love that this developer took it and really ran with it and just added so many features. If you go in there, it's really, really clever how much they did. And so things like that I think are really fun to play around with.
Nice. Yeah. And we'll link to as much of that as we can in the show notes if we remember here.
Definitely.
And then you're a musician. What do you actually play?
So I play a bunch of stuff. I've primarily like guitar, bass, drums, and a little bit of keys. In the band that I'm in, I do bass and a little bit of some synthesizer, a little bit of vocals, and I'll leave it there.
Cool. Is Fourscore an app you've played around with? Do you ever play music with the headset on?
Yes, Fourscore. Thank you for bringing that one up. That Fourscore is awesome. That developer is great. I've been using Fourscore for over 10 years. Since I first got the very first iPad I got was probably like the original iPad Air, and I used Fourscore on that when playing piano, and that's awesome. So yes, I still have a keyboard here at home that I use, and Fourscore on Vision Pro is one of those ones where you're like, oh, this is like the final form of Fourscore, and this is great. So yeah, totally. That's a great app.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. And, anything else we didn't cover that you'd like to before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I think we were pretty thorough here. Let's see. No, that's great. I'll shoot you all these links for the show notes that I can find. And I'm just so excited that this exists. I think I still get giddy when I put it on sometimes, and I'll still do the thing. Did you ever see the commercial where the guy kind of looks to the side of the window and is like observing the edges of it with the Vision Pro? I'll still find myself doing that. I was doing that with the Ultrawide, actually, being like, look at this curve. How does this work? And like kind of just looking at it from the sides. And I'm so impressed by the folks that worked on the software for this, because the execution is just absolutely incredible. So I really hope that they continue to put the time and effort into it to make it really stick with people, because it's so fun. I love it.
Yeah, it's still a thing that I'm like, I use it every day, but it's still a thing like, I can't believe this is in the world and is here. Like, it's so good, and it still puts a huge smile on my face when I just put it on and see these windows just in my space and around me. It's like, it's great,
Yep, I agree. It still feels like magic.
Yeah. So have you, how close have you gotten to any of your coworkers to picking one of these up? Has the price point scared every one of your coworkers away?
So one of my coworkers did actually get it. And he exclusively basically uses it for movies. He's big on Disney Plus and loves that. He has never tried it for work, as far as I know. I wish, because we're on the same team. And so I was like, come on, dude, we could be doing spatial FaceTime work videos all the time, or work calls. But I've got to convince him.
Yeah. Disney Plus on Vision OS. Amazing. It's It's the only platform for Disney Plus that does not support ads. So if you're on ad tier, you just get all the movies and stuff ad free. It's either a lovely oversight or they're just being very nice to us. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll enjoy it while it lasts.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Because I'm on the ad tier. We did the bundle with Hulu or whatever, and it's so nice. There's no ads in the Hulu content. There's no ads either. It's like and I watch a lot of stuff there. So
yeah, it's great.
Anyways, well, where can folks follow you online and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm not a huge. I don't have a big online presence per se. I have a new site that I was just kind of throwing together. That's at Santiago.NYC, and I'm going to start having kind of posts up there with more of this Vision Pro stuff as I explore it and discover it. So if folks want to follow along there, that's where it'll be. Otherwise, if you want to listen to my band, that's Adult Fantasy Novel is the name of the band, and we're on like Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you listen. So those are probably the only two.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great learning about how you work in Vision Pro, and a lot of fun just topics that I just bounced around. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a total blast.
Well, that was my interview with Santiago. My thanks again to Santiago for his time recording this episode. My thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. As a render, you can support this podcast over visionpros.fm/Patreon or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. And if you have not yet left a review in Apple Podcasts, please open that app up and leave a quick review. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. With that, I'll talk with everyone again real soon.